What if the habits you dismiss as too small to matter are the very things shaping your future? What if the real reason you are stuck is not that you lack ambition, but that you keep underestimating tiny and small actions? Most people think change has to feel dramatic before it becomes meaningful. They think progress should look obvious, fast, and impressive. But this chapter teaches the opposite. Some of the most powerful changes in life begin in ways that look almost invisible. James Clear opens this chapter with the story of British cycling. For nearly a century, the team had very little to show. Then Dave Brailsford introduced a philosophy he called the aggregation of marginal gains. Improve everything by just 1%, and the combined effect becomes significant. That is the core lesson of this chapter. Tiny behaviors look insignificant in the moment, but their compound effect is enormous. One better choice today may seem too small to count. Repeated long enough, it can change everything. Clear gives the math directly. If you get 1% better every day for 1 year, you end up about 37 times better. If you get 1% worse every day, you decline towards zero. What starts as a tiny edge becomes a massive difference over time. This chart should help you visualize this upward and downward compounding. The value of a habit is not in what it looks like once. It is in what it becomes through repetition. One-page read in a day feels small, but every one-page read every day becomes books finished, ideas absorbed, and a different mind over time. The same is true in fitness, in money, in skill, in leadership, and in character. One walk does not transform your body. One saving decision does not create wealth. One kind act does not define your character. But repeat them long enough, and they begin to shape a completely different life. Most people miss this part because they judge habits too early. They want immediate proof. They expect quick evidence. And when the result does not appear fast enough, they assume the habit is not working. But often, the habit is working. The result is simply delayed. This is where the chapter becomes practical. Progress is not always visible in the beginning. Habits often work below the surface before they show up in your life above the surface. That is why people stop too early. They mistake delayed results for failed effort. Clear explains this with the ice cube example. You heat a room from 25 to 31 degrees and nothing seems to happen. Then at 32 degrees, the ice melts. The work was not wasted. The breakthrough was being stored. He calls this the plateau of latent potential, shown in the diagram on page 22. This is the valley where most people quit. They expect linear progress, but compounding does not feel linear in the beginning. It feels slow, then sudden. What the world later calls an overnight success is often the visible release of a long, invisible process. In real life, this looked like Warren Buffett. His edge was not one dramatic financial moment. It was disciplined decisions compounded over decades. Small advantages, repeated patiently, became extraordinary outcomes. That is one reason compounding is not only a finance principle, it is a life principle. You can also see it in James Dyson. Thousands of prototypes before one breakthrough. Most people notice the finished product. They do not see the repeated effort that made mastery possible. Consistency often looks unimpressive until it becomes undeniable. Then the chapter goes one level deeper. Habits are not just actions, they are trajectories. A good habit can compound upward, a bad habit can compound downward. One unhealthy meal, one skipped workout, one distracted hour, one avoidable purchase. Each seems small alone, but repeated often enough can cause a major shift. Remember, small negative choices also build a future. Clear explicitly calls habits a double-edged sword. This leads to one of the most important parts of the chapter. Focus less on goals and more on systems. Goals are about the results you want. Systems are about the processes that lead to those results. Winners and losers often share the same goals. What separates them is the system they follow. Clear's conclusion is blunt. You do not rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your systems. Here is what that looks like in real life. In business, daily outreach compounds into opportunity. In fitness, short workouts beat occasional extremes. In money, automatic saving beats emotional intensity. In leadership, repeated reliability builds trust. The lesson is simple, but not shallow. Progress hides inside ordinary days. Here is the lesson to carry with you. Tiny choices are never tiny for long. A quiet habit can build a loud future. What repeats in silence appears in results. So what should you do with this chapter? Stop asking whether one action will change your life today. Start asking whether this action is worth repeating tomorrow. Pick one habit so small it feels almost unimpressive. One page read, one light exercise, one paragraph of content, one savings transfer. Then repeat it long enough to let it compound. And this is why Chapter 2 matters. Once you understand that small habits compound, the next question becomes deeper. Why do some habits last while others fade? The next chapter answers that by showing you the role identity plays in lasting change. Before you move on, let's apply the aggregation of marginal gains by commenting that 1% improvement you can make today. Just focus on one area of your life. The rest will follow. Subscribe and stay with this series from Chapter 1 to the final recap. Remember, the smallest habits often create the biggest changes. Now is the time.